Hi guys, my name is Rishabh. Welcome to another podcast of We Awake You. Today I'm joined with Dr. Meera, who is a clinical psychologist and she specializes in children and adolescent psychology, and her PhD and MPhil work talks primarily about the cyber psychology, its effect on people, its pros, cons, good, bad. So I'm very excited to talk about how cyber psychology actually impacts us and the nitty-gritties around it. So, Dr. Meera, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Thank you so much. And it's a pleasure to be with VIVQ and you, Rishabh. Thank you for inviting me.
That's good to know. So, since I said that you are into the field of cyber psychology, is there any personal story or some common observation that triggered you into researching about this topic? Or was it just out of some other reason? Do you have any personal story along with it too?
Lots of them, actually. So, to start with, I was doing my MPhil and I had finished my master's and I was working. And then back at that time in 2010, there were not much of internet, the boom the way it is now. But now that it is, you might be not even able to imagine how it was then, because that was the word internet addiction seemed to be the new game, new world, and so everyone was like looking forward to looking at it. And every time you flipped onto the newspapers, you got to see lots of things like identity theft. You saw people becoming anonymous, trolling people on Facebook. So Facebook addiction also became a next big thing that was coming. So during my MPhil, I was looking out for a research topic, and then I wanted it to be like every student, I wanted to do something different. So I tried to do something different, and then I realized that every single time there was some new news coming up, and at that time I was looking into blue whale challenge,
Hmm.
and that came up in a big boom. People lost their lives, especially youngsters, adolescents, and my specialization being adolescent, it kind of affected me in the sense that why are teenagers literally committing suicide over a game, and is it so much impactful? The answer came back right at me as yes. And it has got a lot to do with cyber psychology. If you knew how to behave online, if you knew what is real online, then you won't be losing out lives. So
Hmm.
that triggered me into cyber psychology.
All right. So, like you said, that the internet addiction causing people to taking stuff so seriously that they commit suicide, mainly because of the reference that you take about the blue whale challenge. I would say
Yeah.
I personally at least have seen that it's very hard for me to maintain a boundary between my online persona versus my offline persona. My personal opinion is that there should be a boundary, a healthy boundary between the two. Would you say you agree on the fact that there should be a boundary between your offline persona and online persona? Or do you think they should be the one and the same thing and it doesn't really matter?
It comes it's very interesting, Rishabh, that my entire of my PhD thesis is about online and offline integration. So I personally believe that there should be no boundaries. And as a therapist and also as a person who has been in the cyber psychology field for the past 14 years, I believe that there are no boundaries. You are what you are online and you are what you are offline. And if you are not so, that is unhealthy. So if you're saying healthy boundaries, the boundaries are muffed up now. There are like, you are there on Facebook, you're on Insta, you're on Snapchat, you're on LinkedIn. Your professional life, personal life, social life, social roles, and the multiple communities that you are involved with, everything is online
Correct.
and also offline. So how can you have a healthy boundary? There should be no boundary. It should be permeable, it should be transferable.
I would say I agree to that till a large extent that being honest, upfront, and in some ways vulnerable in both these aspects creates less tension in the mind because when you're having sort of like two personas on two different platforms, online, offline, you're always in this dilemma कि मैं online में अपने offline character ना दिखा दूँ and offline में online ना दिखा दूँ. So I would
एकदम.
agree for that part, but I also feel like maybe biologically when we post content about ourselves or anything that represents us on Instagram, on Facebook, anywhere, it is definitely till some degree sugar coated and shown in a way that is not truly us. Like it's very evident that whenever you see a story, you won't see a person ranting or crying about something that they had. They'll probably post something positive, be it they're going out with their friends, they're having coffee, some meme. It's always on a side of positivity, be it on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is, I feel like, is the best example of how it was earlier a professional networking and job finding opportunity, but now it's just a show off game कि मैंने ये कर लिया, मैंने वो कर लिया. I am so great. Like if I look at your profile
Exactly.
and if people will look at my profile on LinkedIn, they'll be like ये मेरे को तो इसको अभी hire करना है. Not to be too cocky, but that's how the general impression is that I have no limitations, nothing can beat me, I am the best in the game. So again, we can agree to disagree on a lot of things, but I would say, at least for me personally, if we totally become honest and real on the internet, then it can be a very scary situation for a lot of people, because what a lot of people don't show in the online world, they show that to the offline few friends that they have. And I know that somewhere those thoughts and vulnerable emotions जो offline में अपने friends के साथ share करते हैं, if that thing was put on the internet, it'll be a very scary situation for them because
Yeah, of course. I mean, nobody wants to see an Instagram reel of somebody crying out loud or having a temper tantrum, right? I mean, so what you're saying is that what I'm understanding from what you're saying is that what we actually portray online is about impression management. If the
hmm,
impression manage, is nothing wrong with it, like, because where how you are at home, you might be very free, you are at home, you can do whatever you want to do. But when you're out there in a professional front, or else you're projecting yourselves as a person in the outside world, you have to have a certain amount of regulation as to how much is okay. But at the same time, let me point out towards the LGBT community. I have had a multiple number of cases coming in where they say, we feel so much comfortable online. We are out in the open in the online communities. We are not able to show to the outside world or in our own society that I'm an LGBT Q community person. So but the mantra for this is, when you integrate both of the cells, then only will you not be dissociated from your identity. And that is what precisely what I want to say. Your identity matters a lot when you how you identify, and how are you portraying it outside. If you are portraying something absolutely totally different, and you're completely the opposite of it in the offline life, then it is going to create problems for you. You are the one
hmm,
who is going to get dissociated. The world doesn't care.
hmm,
The
hmm,
world will not care. But you matter, your mental health matters, how you portray your identity matters. So we are looking not at a general normal always population. We are looking at children, we are looking at adolescents, we are looking at young adults there. And as you said, LinkedIn, your best possible self is out there, and that's important for your profession, that's okay. But if you're putting something which is false,
hmm, hmm.
that is a problem.
I mean, as I agree with you, and I think we can sort of agree to the common point that this is a double-edged sword. It can be taken in both a positive or a negative way. And to add on a question to the topic that we're discussing, is that since you talked about the LGBT community, there are a lot of, in general, online communities, and with the rise of online dating apps, I personally would say, especially after COVID, myself personally, I have seen a change in me where I'm not able to interact that openly, freely, socially, in the real life sense. More than that, I feel more comfortable dating or using dating apps or finding Discord communities than to actually go out, meet friends, expose yourself out there with all of the things that come along, like the non-verbal cues. So I'm sure a lot of people would face that. So would you say, in a way, that is really killing our social, um, what do you say, horizon to meet other people physically? And do you think that we are now slowly only becoming dependent on the online world to have any sort of social interaction?
Not totally, but at the same time, yes, majorly. Most of the times, youngsters are online and they are online dating, and they are left swiping, right swiping at the people that they think that are more attractive to them, and they are waiting for their would be's and their loved ones to appear from the screen.
Yeah.
and and it's a diverse population out there, so there is a lot of a lot of fishes out there actually, where you can actually go and fish. But then
Mhm.
you have to choose only one fish at the end of the day. If you're like dating moonlighting, that is also possible online, which is not as possible offline. So if for people who are promiscuous or wanting to blur
Polyamorous.
the boundaries of morality, they can
Mhm.
go ahead and date three people and choose one out of them for all that they care. But
Yeah.
how it is going to affect the person who is actually invested in it is a totally different ball game altogether. Now, coming to your question as to whether our social skills are getting affected online as compared to offline, it depends. If I'm interacting with somebody online and I'm online dating somebody, maybe in the US, maybe in Canada, I obviously have a physical space I can't actually, bridge. But that bridge can come when actually I meet that person physically, or meet that person offline somewhere. But if I want to make an initial identification of my ideas, my values, my thought processes, online dating is absolutely fine at that way. And it does give you a area to be yourselves, because many of the times you're texting, and many if you're more comfortable, you'll be online, like right now we both are talking online. And then eventually, if everything hits off fine, then offline. So there is a good possibility of safety measures also coming in for women. So there are lots of positives to online dating also. But then the minute it breaches the lines of, as I said, so-called morality, again I'm saying so-called because your parameters of morality
Definitions are
might be very
different for
different from
other
mine.
people. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
So, till the time it doesn't harm the other person, you're fine, right? I mean, so online dating from my side, I think we have got a better pool, and we have more ideas, more safe, more diverse population that we are looking at. So I think it's a fair game to play. And offline, yes, social skills are needed to be built, and eventually people like me as psychologists are going to come in your life. Gen Z people need to be taught
Hmm.
how to be talking to a woman on offline. So, or go ahead and actually propose a woman of, or a a man, or how to date physically and keep the boundaries still offline.
Hmm.
So that is a thing that eventually will have to be taught, maybe, which came naturally to people who were millennials. So
Yeah, definitely. I do
yeah.
agree. So if we talk about the possible and potential career fields in the field of cyber psychology, we could make a whole new podcast on this topic altogether. But
Absolutely.
considering you have a lot of experience as to what possible career opportunities can be, and maybe there might be a few opportunities जो हमें खुद को नहीं पता क्या arise हो सकती है. Like we were earlier talking about how they can be human oriented, human friendly chatbots. This is one example that he gave me that I didn't even think of, how a cyber psychology की specialization can help you build a niche career. So similarly, in the field of cyber psychology, to keep it simple, what are the different job opportunities or business opportunities one can look at?
The possibilities are so endless. I'm bubbling to tell you about it. So one of the things, let's start from the simplest possible definition of cyber psychology. Cyber itself is technology, and psychology is human. So human computer interactions. What psychology students can do is go ahead and bridge that gap and get into technology, learn skills, learn to make human friendly, user friendly interfaces, user friendly. UX designs can be so much better. So UX designers can learn cyber psychology, and psychologists can learn technology in order to bridge the gap altogether, to
Hmm.
make good AI chatbots, to make good places where virtual assistants can come in place. So that will lessen the burden of everyday grunt work that people are making for their lives. So that's one. The other place that they can get into really is forensic science and intelligence. So cyber crimes is like on the go. Like one of the movies that I saw was that of Terminator 2, and it says
Okay.
you got nowhere to run, you got nowhere to hide, nowhere. So that itself is indicative of the fact that in on the internet everything is out there. You put anything online, you will be found. And so
Hmm.
cyber frauds are there, cyber crimes are there, and cyber bullies are out there. And so if you can be an ethical hacker, if you can go ahead and understand the behavioral patterns through psychobiometrics, or learn how to read a person online, then you can get into the field of this. Otherwise, get into clinical cyber psychology, which is clinical psychology plus cyber psychology, and everything is online now. Employee assistant programs are all online, and you have to get to know the other person and their possible clinical symptomologies online itself. And so there is a
Hmm.
niche right there also. So the possibilities are so many that I can't like completely encompass all of it in this short time.
Hmm.
But these are the major areas apart from academia that is getting into research.
But is there any, if I talk about a bit more practical and actual, you can say, opportunities to explore this field, are there any specific certifications that you could maybe advise, or certain course or of a particular college that you personally have seen ki you should probably go ahead in this? Because a person who is already
Uh,
pursuing their bachelor's, let's say, because I feel like in bachelor's, like after bachelor's and while joining undergraduate college, उस time पे this they have to make this decision what field of specialization under psychology do they wish to pursue. So is there any particular certification, website, college that you might have in mind ki this might be a good option to explore this field
like
by any
i
chance?
i believe that certification programs are now slowly starting up in cyber psychology. I myself am designing one. And also the fact that a 6 months course can actually give you some bridge between psychology, normal undergraduate basic psychology course, and a master's program. And the truth is that instead of actually everyone pooling towards clinical psychology, it's a good idea to actually do a master's in clinical cyber psychology, which is offered in the US and in Canada, which where already things are cropping up. You do a MS PhD program with stipend, and you just fly there
Hmm.
and get that degree which is there out for cyber psychology. I would have loved to do it had I been there in my times. I would have loved to do a MS PhD in cyber psychology. Now there are journals that are coming up in cyber psychology, which are things where this is one of the most pioneer subjects in psychology, where if you step in, you will be a pioneer. So there is no looking back. There is AI coming up, and you're going to eventually end up calling yourselves an AI psychologist after a point. Cyber psychology will be in a back burner. Things will not just be between human computer interactions. You become a psychologist for a computer interactions. So there is so much of scope that
Hmm.
it's just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the college options are definitely something people would have to explore for themselves, check out the websites, check out the payment structure, sorry, fee structure, and what
Norfolk
the course
University, as
curriculum
far I know, Norfolk University USA is providing masters in cyber psychology, as far as I know, immediately. And there are some more coming up in the US. But in India, I think there is no masters in cyber psychology per se. But I'm sure in a couple of years it will be here. But you
So
can
since
have a
hmm,
certification program that is like a month course or a 6 months course that is out there in the public area, public domain, that you can equip yourselves. Meanwhile, if you're going to get into a master's in clinical psychology or counseling psychology, a certificate program in cyber psychology will always come in handy.
okay, and I had to point out another one thing that you had initially mentioned when I asked you the career fields. You had said that you yourself are planning to take a class, like a master class on this subject. So If you had to say, if anyone's interested so far, if they watched the video so far, they like what we're talking about, I'm sure they might be a bit curious as to what actually is offered in this masterclass, or you can say this field as a whole. So, what would be the top three or top four things if someone is willing to enroll for the masterclass that you will be taking can expect out of that?
So let's start from the first. You get to know a lot about what exactly is cyber psychology. You get to know how a person can interact online and offline and keep himself integrated as a person and as a professional online. So, in terms of your identity, your relationships, your social roles, your realistic aspects, and your realism, or else what we call it as pragmatism, can be understood, as well as the fact that why are people doing certain things online as they are, whether it is cyberbullying, whether it is cybercrime, whether it is just basic online dating. As to why do people do what they do online is one of the things that will be certainly covered onto that workshop. Apart from the fact that, how can you make money online, and how can you use cyber psychology to make money. It's
Mm.
not just fast money. What I meant to say is a pathway towards using psychology and using cyber psychology as a niche, so that you can catapult your career towards a place where you can earn more money, is where we are looking at basically job profiles.
That's good to know. And for people who are wondering about the date, time, the course price, and all the relevant information about the nitty-gritties as to when is this masterclass happening, I would be mentioning the link down below in the description for you to check it out if you are liking the video so far and really curious about cyber psychology as a field. So, Dr. Meera, it was very nice having you on the podcast. And I'm sure I personally learned a lot, all jokes apart, about this field. Because my brain was only limited to the pros and cons of social media, and that was the only extent till which I could think what cyber psychology is. I didn't think research की field में, career के field में, AI chatbots के field में, and universities are also taking this up seriously. So thank you for giving that insight to someone who also does not come from a non-psychological background. So it was very nice having you once again.
It was lovely talking to you, Rishabh. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.